All right, welcome everybody. I am so excited today. I get the privilege to do an interview with my friend Delroy. Delroy is a recent graduate of the Masculine Leader, which is the group coaching program that I offer for men. We've just got to be in conversation and connection for a good 6, 7 months now.
Mhm.
He just recently completed the program, and we're here today just to talk about him and the experience that he had in the coaching program. So thanks, Delroy, for being willing to do this interview and just anything that you would like to share about yourself from the outset so people get an idea of who you are.
Yeah, Delroy Hall. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, good course, which I'll say more about in a moment. Yeah, Delroy Hall, based in Sheffield, England, which is about 200 miles north of London. Everybody knows London, but nobody knows Sheffield. It's about 200 miles north. By background, psychotherapist, counselor, trainer, teacher, lecturer. And I work for myself as a kind of a thought partner for CEOs and high-level exec, also to work with them in terms of crisis prevention. In one of my former lives, I was a student counselor for 20 years, but also I was a pastor and also a regional bishop. Regional bishop basically was the oversight of 8 churches in the northeast of England. I did that for about 10 years and then still have faith, but no longer leading churches, but still kind of pastoring outside in the big wide world. So the work that I do is essentially non-religious. But obviously, if people want to speak to that, I can do, or spirituality, I can do. But yeah, that's me in a tiny nutshell. I keep fit. After all these years, this year I celebrate 50 years of being in sports. So I need to get myself signed up to a couple of aquabike events, which is swimming and cycling. It's not cycling in the water. You swim, you get out of the water, and then you get on the bike and you cycle for about 25k. It's basically the triathlon without the run. So
Ah.
that's what I'll be doing. So yeah. So that's me in a very, very tiny nutshell. Married, twins, 30 years old, and not too long become a grandfather. So yeah, quite a lot happening.
And as a bit of a side area to explore there, in terms of the running, is there a reason why that you didn't incorporate the running into this event that you're taking on?
Yeah, so I started the sprint triathlons, and the idea was to do an Ironman when I was 60, but I became unwell, so I'd stopped training. But the reason why I'm doing the aquabike. I can't run now. I've got arthritis in the hip, which I think goes back to my early days when I was a 400-meter hurdler.
Mm,
Event that I absolutely loved. Never learnt to hurdle with both legs. I think it's a injury that I've carried from when I was young. And yes, I was when I was 20, I was number 2 in Great Britain as a 400-meter hurdler. And over the years, it's been fine, but over the last 2 or 3 years, I felt it quite painful. So to run now is quite painful. But as an aside, though, here in the UK, I don't know about other parts of the world, but here in the UK, there's quite a few triathletes who are now taking up aquabike because it's on the run where people are injured
mm,
and less likely to be so to do swimming because it's non-load weight bearing on the joints and
sure.
certainly the bike as well. So there are a few athletes who've decided to drop the running and just focus on the swimming and the
Yeah.
cycling. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know we talked about this a little bit in the past, but I mean, you walk over it like it's no big deal, but being number two in any sport at the national level is incredibly impressive.
Yeah, it was and the backdrop to it really very quickly was that when I was about to leave school and I was so frightened of getting a beer belly. And of course you have to drink beer to get a beer beer belly, but I just didn't want to be, get fat and all the rest of it. So I just joined an athletic club just before I left school, so I was 16. And then it was a year later, there was an AGM and a general meeting for the athletic club. And there's a guy there called Alan Mellett. He says, look, we haven't got any male hurdlers. You give me the men, I'll make them hurdlers. And I remember the Tuesday night saying, it's not going to be me. Because when I was at school earlier on, I had an injury with a hurdle and I've still got the scar on my ankle to this day. So I weren't going to do it at all. That was a Tuesday night. The Thursday I turned up to train and my coach Dave, whatever his name was now, and he never called me Delroy. Right, you're doing hurdles tonight, and we got into a bit of a spat. But being the obedient kid that I was, I went over to the hurdles, and as they say, the rest is history. I just fell in love with the event, a
Mm.
very difficult event. They call it the man killer of the track because the training is really, really hard. But absolutely loved the event. Absolutely loved it.
And for how long were you participating in the sport? And like, was there ever an opportunity to go to the Olympics or anything like
Mm.
that?
Well, funny to say that. I started in 1977, so within 2 years I was number two in Britain. We were planning to, I think it was the '84 Olympics, to have a crack
Mm,
at that, but then I quit. I was getting injured quite a lot,
mm,
and then I was losing a losing a bit of interest, and then I found faith and
mm-hmm.
strange stuff around Sundays, but it wasn't the church put no pressure on me at all to quit sport. So it's not one of these groups whereby if you do certain things, you have to quit it to be a part of us. There's no pressure from the church
Sure.
at all. So I just want to make that kind of clear. Um, yes, I was getting injured quite a lot, and then I was beginning to lose some interest in it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so had I got to 84 it might have been under a lot of pressure. It
Sure.
hadn't made the Olympics, but at that time, I I think I might not have. Looking back, I might not have got there, but it was something we were aiming for. But then I decided to quit 2 years
Yeah.
before. Yeah, so
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
still, it's impressive in its own right, to actually compete at that high of a level. That's really amazing.
yeah, and I think the other thing I'll say that I didn't realize at the time that one of the things about sports, it teaches you discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And the discipline doesn't just stay whilst you're doing the sports. For me, it has followed me through my life.
Yes.
So yeah, you never lose it. I don't think you ever lose it. And I'm grateful because a lot of the young guys who I was training with at the time who didn't apply themselves to the sports. It's amazing how things pan out for people because in
Mm-hmm.
terms of careers, most of them, if I remember rightly, they've ended up with kind of manual jobs. And I'm not saying
Mm.
there's anything wrong with that. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
looking at this whole thing about discipline, being committed to a sport, turning up for training on time, reporting to your coach. And a lot of these guys, very talented, but they lack the discipline. I just finished with this
Yes.
story. One Sunday, I remember when I was competing, I took my athletics really seriously, as I said, and I went to bed very early the Saturday night and ate properly all the rest of it. And I was at the stadium getting changed, and half a dozen of my friends came in. So they called me Delhi. Said, Delhi, what time did you go to bed last night? So I said, oh, 9 o'clock. So I said, what time did you guys go to bed? They said, we've not been to bed. We're just coming from a party. Well, they had no sleep. They competed, but they were absolutely trashed at the end of the
Mm.
competition. And that's something I would never ever do.
Yes.
And they kind of followed that trajectory that they didn't take the sport seriously and all that type of stuff. But anyway,
No,
yeah,
it's such I mean, a great conversation that we could dive into, another time. But I mean, I
sure.
think that, really you could transition that to sport shaping, this pathway of even getting into the masculine leader. And,
Oh,
even if we
absolutely.
back that up, I imagine sport, the mentality of it, the desire, the curiosity led you on this path, to No More Mr. Nice Guy,
Hmm.
to this, learning. I'm kind of rambling on it, but like, can you share more about, obviously there was a pathway into the masculine leader, but where was the initial spots where you started getting interested into stuff like No More Mr. Nice Guy, men's work, that type of thing?
Yeah, I think it was reading the book, No Mr. Nice Guy, Robert Glover, and then there's a men's group. But I think one of the things I've always known about me, I perform better if I have a coach.
Mm,
And this is not about telling me what to do. but I think, and it's not even about accountability because I think that word is not helpful. But it's about, for
Hmm.
me, it's about ownership.
Hmm.
I'm owning my development. I'm owning doing the sessions. I'm owning doing the exercises. And I always said to myself when I was compete as an athlete, I never wanted to be in a race and wished I'd not missed the sessions.
Hmm.
So I applied myself to everything. So in my life, I think perhaps I could have gone further had I had more coaches along the way. But I do know that coaching was very helpful in my athletics. Coaching was also helpful for me when I was a pastor, even though part of my tradition never had coaches at all. I did. I spoke about its importance. And when I left the organization after nearly 40 years, I can't think of one pastor who took up the idea of a coach to help
Hmm.
you through the good times and the tough times of ministry and so forth. So, coaching for me has always been really important. And my transition was no more Mr. Nice Guy, saw myself in the book countless of times, then joining the men's group, and then now I'm being coached by Andrew. So, yeah, I've
Hmm.
had coaching for a good part of my life.
And for somebody that's listening to this, what would you say is the difference between, like, say, the athletic coaching that you received and the life coaching that you received through something like the masculine leader, if anything?
Well, yeah. I always found it as somebody that I reported to, but not in a negative sense.
Mm.
And what I found that if you did a session and it didn't go well, there's some exploration as to why it didn't go well.
Hmm.
So I've never found coaching to be overbearing. I've never found it to be oppressive. I've never found it to be authoritarian or dictatorial, but for me it's a kind of it's a mutual relationship. And the incident my athletics coach is still alive, he's 84, and until recently he was still competing. And his mind is as sharp as he was an engineer, sharp mind and everything. So um I think now at the end of it, whether coach is good or not, it's about you applying yourself to the work.
Hmm.
But it's good having somebody who travels alongside you as you do the work. And I think one of the things, as I'm starting my business later on in my life, one of the things that I was taught that coaching compresses time. So
Hmm.
that's something I found really, really helpful. And you can go on YouTube and you can find out a lot of stuff, but it takes so long. But if you have a coach, and quite often it's not the coach telling you what to do, but just the critical questions that are you're asked to reflect on are really kind of helpful. So yeah, there's some overlap, whilst
Hmm.
there's some distinctions, but there's certainly some overlap. But it creates for me, it creates ownership, responsibility, but also I think it teaches you to grow up
Mm.
as a man, or from my thing from a boy into a young man. Yeah, I think it teaches you to grow. There's lots of benefits, loads of benefits.
Well, it's funny too because, like, I get this feeling that it's like it's really interesting that I just get the sense that, like, hey, we could take Delroy and put him into any container and he would flourish in it because of who you're being, how you're showing up in the space, the mentality that you have of excellence. It just, that's what I really am present to in this moment.
Yeah, one of the things I don't think I've even shared it. I've started music lessons again. Because
Hmm.
I play the piano a little bit, and the last time I played was in church about 5 or 6 years ago. But one of on my bucket list before I leave the planet, I'd like to play in a little jazz band and weddings, little gigs and stuff. Nothing. I don't want to do albums and stuff like that. And so I've got this tutor in Sheffield. He's saxophonist, but he plays the keyboard. He's from Canada. A guy called Stuckey, Piero Stuckey, but not related to the actor. Tucky,
Hmm.
is it? Yeah. Anyway, there's a track called The Road. Pierre is really, really good. He's really kind of teaching me not to be so stuck to sheet music, but to have some room for expression, for a bit of freedom on the keyboard and so forth. Anyway, he asked me if there's anything that I like. So I said, yeah, there's a track called The Road Less Traveled by Joe Sample. Brilliant track, way out of my league at the moment, way out. And anyway, we got it on YouTube, and he just let me go just to kind of feel my way around. And I only got a few bars, and he was helping me a bit. And something happened which caught me off guard. I just burst into tears as I was playing
Mm,
this. And I didn't play the whole lot. I didn't even play a quarter of it, but I just played, I don't know, maybe 8 bars. And I was in floods of tears. And he was really good. He didn't try to mop my tears up. He just said, "This is what music does to you."
mm,
And there was something about this piece of music which I've enjoyed for years, and just being able to play a few bars, it just caught me off guard. So I think there's this whole thing about coaching, people that travel with you, allow you to explore, allow you to try things. Yeah, it's just great stuff, really. So
mm-hmm,
yeah,
mm-hmm.
so if you listen to this, sign up, sign up. That's what I would say.
Yeah,
Sign up.
for sure. For sure.
Mhm.
Well, and again, a great transition point because, we started having conversations together and talking about the potentials of working together.
Mhm.
What made you follow, just sort of make that decision to sign up for the masculine leader? What was it that you were like, okay, this is something that I want to do?
Well, I think partly it was to do with reading No More Mr. Nice Guy, and then there was I think in the book there was the opportunity of joining a group, and I think without getting too involved in it all, that um, I think one of the big issues for me was around relationships,
Hmm.
intimate romantic relationships, and Robert spoke about that quite often in the book, and I could see myself time and time again, but not just relationships. I saw myself, quite often being a pastor and this thing about being a servant, and then there's an expectation. It's almost as though you're there to serve everybody else, but you have no needs for yourself. And quite clearly you do. Um, so it was the book, saw myself in it, realized that if the next few years are going to be of any benefit and value, and I'm going to enjoy it far more than maybe the previous years, I'd have to do something significant, and I'd have to do it with a coach.
Hmm.
I wouldn't have been able to. The book was all right, and I've gone through it, and the second time round, I've made notes and so forth, but it's not the same as being in relationship with another human being to walk you through things. And I think that's key for me. I can learn from books, I can learn from videos, but there is
Hmm.
something about relationship which is really key to me. Hence my work as a psychotherapist and a pastor. For me, it's all about relationship.
Sure.
So yeah.
And if you can recall, what was your, intention or what were you hoping to get out of the masculine leader?
I was kind of open-minded, but I think I wanted to be a bit more masculine around women, to be honest. Um, uh, oh, let's just clear that down.
No
Yeah,
problem.
so if I'm going to be honest, I think yeah, I wanted to be a bit more a bit more masculine around women, a bit more confident around women, um, but leadership for me is kind of really
Hmm.
key. Um, yeah, and I remember the first 2 or 3 years of being a pastor, I really ran in the opposite direction about a lead. I didn't want to do it. I just wanted to be a pastor, visit the folks and do a sermon, and that was it. But in the end, it's very apparent that what was needed was leadership. Um, and I kind of developed my own model of leadership after 30 years of kind of ministry and working with people. Obviously, I see a lot of leadership now, which I don't think is very good.
Hmm.
I'm not saying I'm a great leader either, but I think it was about, yeah, kind of leadership that really kind
Yes.
of, yeah, yeah, that really kind of spoke to me, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And if I can also recall in our kind of initial conversations was that like the masculinity, the leadership, which would then impact business as well.
Well, to be honest, it impacts everything,
Hmm.
your whole life really. But yeah, certainly business. started as I've struggled, and I've shared with Andrew that I've struggled for a little while. It's not so much on the radar now, but have I left it too late? I started
Hmm.
business at 61, 62. Have I left it too late? Doing this thing at 64, 65. Have I left it too late? But no, age is just a number. In fact, just as an aside, I started dancing recently, and I was talking to somebody on Tuesday, and she's got twins, and they're 3.5 years old. And I said, "Oh, I've got twins as well." So she said, "How old are they?" So I said, 30. She said, 30. She said, "How old are you?" So I told her I was 65, and she thought I was late 40s. I said, "No." I
Wow.
said, "I might look it, but my body lets me know I'm not in my late 40s."
Hmm.
So I think the whole thing around leadership, certainly for business, absolutely. And leaders doesn't necessarily mean that you've conquered everything, but you're having to go to conquer things.
Yes.
Uh, because I'm still working through some stuff now, but I know if I
Hmm.
stay with it, I'll get through. I started open water swimming 18 months ago, and I struggled for the first year. I really struggled, and all it was literally I was coached really by four experienced swimmers, women, and literally within a couple of weeks, I was able to swim further than I had done for the whole year. So the whole thing around coaching, leadership, working through stuff, pushing barriers for yourself, is really key for me. And I'm not I'm not ready to start pushing up daisies yet, as they say in England. So
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well,
So
and I know one of the things that I shared with you and you were really creating in the experience was that leadership comes from being. It's not a
yeah,
title,
absolutely,
it's not, a
absolutely.
designation, but it's actually about who we are and how we create the experience.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, can you just share briefly about like what was that experience like of continuing to deepen that being in the program itself?
Um, well, it's challenging, and certainly for me, I thought maybe I'd got to a limit in terms of my leadership abilities, but
Mm.
then you realise no, you haven't, and you never do. In all
Hmm.
honesty, um, so I think that's what makes life exciting. In fact, when I so my previous time I worked for the telephone company in Britain, British Telecoms, and I remembered when I first it was post office telephones then, and there was a time where men had been had worked for the company for 40 years, retired, and not one or two, but quite a few within 3 or 4 months died. It
Hmm.
was it was it was like a pandemic. So they started to do something about it. But one of the things that leadership does for me, it gives you purpose.
Yes.
And purpose is critical for our well-being, really. Um, so I know that doing this, being involved in leadership, it's not something that ends at 60, but
Hmm.
it's something that I will keep doing. And if I'm spared another 15 years, I will be doing that till I'm 80. If I can do it
Yes.
beyond, yes. So, in a sense, the whole thing around learning about leadership, about being, about learning about yourself doesn't stop.
Hmm.
I think the minute we stop learning and growing, the next thing for most of us is kind of, you know, somebody choosing the hymns for us, or we choosing the hymns ourselves. But I think
Sure.
if we keep learning and growing and have purpose and knowing why we do things, so we can get up in the morning, there's something to focus on. That's for me, that's leadership, and that's not about titles or status. If it is, that ends when you finish your job. But if it's a part of you, that continues.
Yes.
Yeah, that continues.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and what was the experience like, in those first few weeks of being in the program?
Um, it was. I thought, oh God, do I need to be doing this? Really?
Hmm.
And I think as well, when I first start things, and like lots of people, it's getting your head around the language. It's trying to
Hmm.
understand what's been asked for, and very few of us hear something the first time and get it. So there's many times I had to kind of go through the videos 2 or 3 times to see what's been said. And it's not because I'm not bright, but it's just
Hmm.
that sometimes it's a new idea, new concept. So you have to allow yourself to be exposed to it, but also to be patient with yourself because you're learning something new, learning some new concepts, new skills, new information, not purely as kind of technique or strategy, but
Sure.
to actually internalize them so they become who you are, or you
Well, and
become who they are. Yeah.
I would say, kind of like you're speaking to it, that really the mastery comes from, being willing to listen to something more than once and, sit with concepts that maybe the first time they don't make sense, but really trusting that, like, again, in the sense of leadership being a lifelong thing, it's like these concepts are really a lifelong thing as well.
Yeah.
So, okay. And then as you're kind of walking through the weeks of the program, were there any specific concepts or things that we had discussed in the program that, really stood out to you or, really just like shifted things for you?
Yeah, there's two in particular was the completion exercise and the other one was it fact interpretation or fact?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a real eye opener for me. Um
Hmm.
and I've not done it yet, but I will be doing it. In fact, no, I have been doing it just in terms of because what it's done, that one in particular, it's really got me to question and think about beliefs, how
Hmm.
powerful beliefs can be that can either liberate you or keep you imprisoned.
Yes.
Um, and that's not nothing to do with questioning my faith or anything like that, but just some of the beliefs that we have, and it stops us from doing things. So in the UK, I was talking to somebody yesterday when I said I do open water swimming. In Britain, it's just rare to see black men doing open water swimming. Half the stuff is you don't know what's in the water and all that type of stuff. And I was talking to an African sister yesterday, and she couldn't believe that I swam in cold water. She said within African culture, they would say that I've got the spirit of a wizard. So there's this whole idea, for example, that black people can't swim or black men can't
Sure.
swim. And when I hear stuff like that, I just think that's hogwash. Um,
Yes.
so there's a bit of me that, well, in fact, the reason why I have to do open water swimming is because aquabike events, they don't do it in the pool. So I had to do it. So I have the
Hmm.
option though. I could have said, well, I shan't bother because I don't want to learn how to swim in open water, but I want to do it. So it means then breaking some barriers I've got in my head. And I did have a lot. The thing about the joke, of course, when you go into open water, some of us start hearing the tune from Jaws. So so you've got that going on in your head as you get into the
Sure.
water. But as I said, it took me a year, and I didn't really get much further than say 100 meters in open water, and I would stop, get out, get my breath back, and swim back. This happened week in, week out for a year. And then it's
Yes.
literally August last year, four women who shall remain nameless, but they're now called Delroy's harem, and there's no relationship with any of them because they're all married and all the rest of it.
Sure.
Um, but they just coaxed me around and just helped me
Yeah.
round once, round twice, and then that was it. So yeah, the whole leadership thing for me is, and even that in itself, leadership is actually breaking a limiting belief that you have about yourself
Sure.
and and breaking it and going on to do new things. I've still got limiting beliefs, but certainly with Andrew and the course, it's helped me to kind of at least look at them and beginning to work at them as well.
Yeah, and it's really great what you're speaking to because oftentimes in a space like this, what it creates is an opportunity for those beliefs to be out in the open. So
Yeah.
just as you're in the experience, as you're out in the world, as you're, doing your thing, naturally in a container like that, some of the beliefs will show up. Maybe even the beliefs that you don't see.
Yeah.
But those are being reflected back to you. And what I appreciate what you're speaking about with that exercise with fact versus interpretation is that it
Yes.
does really require us to take a step back
Mm.
and just recognize for ourselves like, hey, is this some interpretation that I've created in the world, or is it an actual fact,
Mm.
what I can speak to in that is that it just gives us that space to be able to just have a breath, to be able to
Mm.
really assess, like, is this belief valid or not in that
Mhm.
sense? And
Yeah, yeah, of
so it's
course.
great that you pick that up, and you're
Mhm.
continuing to utilize it, in your
Mhm.
own day-to-day living.
Sure, sure.
Was there anything in the program that was confronting or you didn't like just anything like that showed up for you?
I think all of it was confronting, to be honest, which I guess is the idea, isn't it? It
Yes.
is the idea is because it's a lovely word, confront, because the word confront means to turn your face towards.
Yes.
So I think all of it was confronting. I never in the course did I think, oh, this is a walk in the park. This is easy, because it wasn't.
Hmm.
Because what it was doing, it was causing me to have a look at myself. And I want to just share this because I do training, and for a long time, I've had lots of question marks around kind of this kind of 2 hour, 3 hours training. And I think organizations do it to tick a box. And I had some concerns around it. And then I found this model and it
Hmm.
really spoke to me. So there's four parts of this model. The second part is acquisition of skills and knowledge. The third is mastery, and the fourth is actualization. But what I discovered when you do these courses, quite often, you never get to mastery because all that's happening is acquisition of skills and
Mm.
knowledge. But the first phase of this model is self-discovery.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of training falls down because they're missing out that first step,
Yes.
which is self-discovery. Because in a sense, if you don't do the self-discovery, what are you building on?
Hmm.
So what I found with the Master Leader course that it was a lot about self-discovery,
Yeah.
which, to be honest, good leadership is about self-reflection. It's not about acquisition of skills and strategy and techniques and methods, even though it has its place. But
Hmm.
it really is about increased self-awareness and lots of self-reflection. And what the course did for me, it was even stuff I'd not even thought about. It made me question some stuff that was really important for my life. So for me, the starting point, almost inbuilt in the course implicitly, is this whole thing around self-discovery, which is
Yes.
key, absolutely key to me, absolutely key. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and and I love that you're speaking to that piece, because that is, a major component of it is the self-discovery, really being able
mm,
to explore who we are, and
mm,
for many men, for the first time, just to recognize that they can shape their identity. They can
mm,
shape the direction that their life can go in. It's not,
sure.
planned out for them, or it's not static in that sense. And
Mm,
I also really appreciate what you're speaking to in terms of that, like, yeah, the experience was challenging,
mm,
because in some ways that could be context, but what we're really looking to do in an experience like this is put you out on the edge, to
mm,
actually have it. I would never want a man to come into this experience thinking like all he has to do is just like show up or pay for it, and like he's gonna reach the destination that he wants to go,
mm.
because the challenge and the commitment to it is where the results get created. And
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
really appreciate that you spoke to it, that like, yeah, there were many parts of it that were challenging,
Mm,
but then it leads to what, as you reach the end of the experience, and you've already spoken to different areas, but like, what did you leave the experience with? What are you noticing about yourself now, or even the life that you're creating now?
Um, well, not ready to push up daisies.
Hmm.
There's a new chapter in my life that's starting, and I'm also seeing endless possibilities. And at my age, which is just a number, I'm not ready to kind of be hanging up my gloves anytime soon. Also, there's lots of things to still explore.
Mm,
So yeah, it's something that's motivated me. Um, yeah, it's a lifelong thing. It's a
hmm
lot. Yeah. So look, you might do the course, but in terms of the growth, well, there's two things actually. I think if you take it seriously, and I think I have done, even if you stopped at the first, there's still elements that you want to continue because you're growing. It doesn't just stop at that. But I certainly want to kind of keep with it. Um,
hmm
um, what did I leave with other than that? Yeah, I think one of the things I might have mentioned already that life is kind of exciting.
mm,
Um, and yeah, it's exciting, and there's still a lot to do. There's still a lot to
hmm
explore. There's still a lot to discover about me, about the world, about other people. And why should I quit now? Got no
Yes.
intention of quitting. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's so great that you speak to like the possibility, the excitement, and you're not speaking to this, directly, but I have a sense that, you coming into this program had a real understanding of like, hey, I kind of get to control my destiny here,
Hmm.
in terms of what I'm creating. But as you're speaking to, it's like the self reflection through the experience, the challenge, all those things. It just creates this pathway of like, yeah, life gets to be exciting, and
Yeah.
life gets to be even more exciting when we feel like we have a say in how life goes.
Hmm. Yeah, I think if I can say this, I don't know, obviously I don't know who'll be listening. Maybe speaking particularly to people of faith, certainly if you came from a kind of Pentecostal charismatic background where there's
Hmm
a particular view of God and how your life is planned out. And even before I started this course, I always believed that actually we've got a lot of responsibility how our lives are shaped. I don't
Yes.
just believe that we just pray and trust to luck. I think
hmm
there is a serious element in what we do to chart the course of our life. So I used to say to the students when I was pastoring that your lecturer wants to see the assignment at the end of the semester. Don't tell him you're praying and fasting about it. If he
Sure.
wants to see an assignment, by all means do your research and pray and fast, but he or she wants to see an assignment at the end of the semester. And you have to turn up for the final exams and not have the hard idea that you just need to fast and pray and then the Lord will give you a pass. I just don't go along with stuff like that at all.
Sure.
You have to do the work whilst you might
Yes.
be doing the praying, and but knowing that maybe that we can't plan our lives 100%, but we have some responsibility, but have that with some room for flexibility if things take a
Yes.
different turn. Um, so yes, I'd say to you, the folks that yeah, pray by all means, do whatever you need, do all the spiritual disciplines, but you have some say in how your life develops and the
Absolutely.
and the pathway that it goes on in the end. So
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for speaking to it.
Exactly.
As we start to sort of wind down for today, is there anything else that you want to share about the experience that the experience itself that maybe we haven't covered?
The only thing I'd say, as much as I found the course challenging, one of the things I came with that I've been somebody who's done introspection for years. So in a sense, that skill wasn't unfamiliar. The questions
Sure.
were challenging and the concepts. So I think for men, if you've not done that type of reflection before, it can be it can feel a bit jarring and quite uncomfortable to start off with. But I'd say stick with it. Um,
hmm
I think the whole, and once you got the bug of self-awareness, you never go back. You
Yeah.
just don't. You just don't. And then you see, and it's not even about navel gazing as we'd call it over here, but it's um yeah, you're just seeing things for what they are, seeing things a bit deeper, but also learning more about yourself, which is really
Hmm.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, and what you're speaking to as well is that, ideally that the space, the conversations that we're in, that they're on a gradient, right? So
Mm.
for that man who maybe hasn't done as much introspection, the idea is that we meet him where he's at,
Yeah.
whereas somebody like yourself, who's been in that space,
Mm.
you can be challenged at a different level. But,
Yeah, yeah.
for that man who, might have that concern,
Hmm.
it's what I can often speak to is that, like you said, is that it does take some time. It takes some easing into the process. And what I see with a lot of men, that I've been in conversation with, is that there's a lot of black and white thinking happening out in the
Mm.
world. By design, men are very like logical. Hey, I need to go fix this thing. These are the steps to go do it. And sometimes when you come into a space like this, you've got to be open to that. There's just things that we don't know. There's things
Yeah,
that
of
we can't
course.
even see,
Sure,
and
sure.
can we stay with it in the conversation?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so I appreciate you pointing that out because
No problem.
it's a very important piece.
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
good.
for sure. Okay, so really thank you so much for sharing, your experience and your wisdom and who you are.
Yeah.
Um, it just, well, the one thing that I want to speak to, before I pass it over to you, is that I love where some of the dots have connected for me in this conversation with your background of being a high level athlete, and
Hmm.
just the desire to have support outside yourself, because I was very impressed with how you showed up in this experience, and, like, again, the curiosity, the intention, the commitment to show up week
Mm.
after week. It shows in the results that you created. And I want to give you some more acknowledgement afterwards, but it just, again, it connects the dots for me, in terms
Okay.
of who
Okay.
you are and how you showed up in the space. And I'm very honored that you came
Thank
into
you.
this.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, I've learned, I've learned so much, and you've been kind of consistent, not kind of, you've been consistent along the way. So I don't regret signing up at all.
Hmm.
Obviously, I wasn't too sure what to expect, but I thought, look, let's just go with it and see where it goes.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. And for yourself, so if somebody was curious to connect with you or find out more about you or what you're up to, is there anything that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I've got two Facebook pages. I've got me Delroy Hall. Then my business one is Dr. Delroy Hall. I'm also on LinkedIn, Delroy Hall. Also, you find me on YouTube as well.
Mm,
But I've done. I started some broadcasts during lockdown. So they're still on Facebook and LinkedIn at the moment. I think Facebook are about to take down lots of live videos, so I'm gonna have to get them moved onto an external hard drive pretty quickly. But I've covered the first one, the first series I did was the whole thing around loss, grief, and bereavement. So if you want to look at I'll say a disclaimer. Barbers weren't open at the time, so I looked like something out of the Flintstones. I'd not had my hair cut for about 3 months, so I got this big bushy beard and big kind of white afro. But fortunately, barbers have opened have since opened.
yeah.
So I did a load of series on loss, grief, and bereavement. I've done stuff on suicide. I've done stuff on gaslighting in relationships, moral injury. Darvo, and for those who not too sure what Darvo is, DARVO, deny, attack, reverse, victim, offender. Simply, it's a psychological term that's used for this situation. So let's say I'm working and I've been doing something that's unethical. Andrew sees what I do, speaks to me, and I continue doing it. He then reports me, which he should do.
Hmm.
He's then told there'll be an investigation. Thank you very much, Andrew. A month later, he's invited into a meeting only to discover that he is now seen as the offender and I'm the victim. So that's
Mm,
deny, attack, reverse, victim, offender. And then what can happen, because I've been the one who's been outed, what organizations do, they make life very difficult for Andrew. I, as the victim, allegedly, get people on my side, what they call flying owls, and basically isolate Andrew. So some of the practice would be he's a senior person in the organization, but he's left out of emails. They have secret
mm.
meetings without him. All all kind of now he's kind of being targeted. And then what happens? He can't take anymore. He either leaves or they fire him, but before he goes, he has to sign a non-disclosure agreement. They usually pay him off. So that's Dov. So I spoke about stuff like that.
Yes,
Yeah, so yeah, things that deals with the human condition that we have to wrestle with. So
perfect.
all on LinkedIn and Facebook page.
Excellent. And you said you're going to get them on YouTube as well in the future, I
Yes, yes,
believe?
some of them are on YouTube already. I've got my own
Okay,
YouTube
great.
channel. Yeah, I've got my own YouTube channel. Not as extensive as this, but certainly a
Sure.
fair. And if you want to contact me, you can do so. You can DM me through Messenger on Facebook or on LinkedIn. Um, and my website is under construction at the moment. Not quite deciding on the name yet, but it might be what Wise Rebel. That might be the name
Perfect.
of my.
Yeah, well,
Um,
I can always add it to the notes afterwards, even if it's down the line when you do get the website name in. But, as Delroy's saying, for the folks that are listening, if you want to connect with him, Facebook, LinkedIn, and also to tune into some of these amazing live topics that you're recording as well, and the future website. So thanks so much, Delroy.
you're welcome.
Can I give you some acknowledgement before we sign off here?
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Um, I think the first place that I just acknowledge you for is for like the champion within you, that winning energy, that willingness to just pursue and create and be curious and being that lifelong learner and pursuer. It radiates through and through with
Mhm.
you.
Mhm. Thank you.
I I really admire that energy about you and just like the excellence. I think that that's the word that really sums it up is that you bring the energy of excellence into the world. And so
Mhm.
thanks for bringing that in this experience and in who you've been in terms of connection with me and just who you
Thank you.
are out in the world. Um, I acknowledge you for the love and the heart that you bring into the space. You bring such a invigorating, just love and presence and fun and humor to the space, with all of your wisdom. You make things light, you make things
Mm.
enjoyable, you bring
Hope
play
so.
to it
Thank
as
you.
well.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
I think that the piece that I'll just close with in the acknowledgement is I love that what's been spoken to in some of our conversations as of late around, you know, not so much the authority, but like the being of leadership, right? Like
Mm.
you radiate this energy of leader,
Mm.
and yet you're so humble. You're so, just willing, you're curious about others. You want to see others grow.
Mm.
And I appreciate that you direct that outwards, but again, it's also that reflection inwards as
Mm.
well. So
Mm.
thank you so much for being a part of this, and
Thank
it's
you.
been great getting to connect with you.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, feeling is mutual. Thank you, Richard D. Thank you.
For
Yeah.
sure, for sure.
Mhm.
All right, everybody. So we are going to end here for today. Again, if you want to connect with Delroy, we've got Facebook, LinkedIn. Also, check out his video content and some of these topics that he's discussing because they're really powerful areas that really make a difference when it comes to leadership going
Mhm.
forward. All right.
Thank you.